What's up, Freeheel Lifers? It's Josh Madsen from Freeheel Life, where we preserve, protect, and promote telemark skiing all day, every day. And today's video is all about the Scarpa TX Comp boot. Here it is. So I'm gonna break down this boot and show you all the tech and spec of it to see if it's a good fit for you. So if you've already watched the video about the TX Pro, this is essentially an identical boot in terms of the techs and specs. So we're looking at just over 1,700 grams per boot in a size 27 Mondo, okay? So that's about 3 pounds, 12 ounces per boot in this particular size of the boot. It's a 100% Pebax boot, which is the type of plastic that's being used. And it's basically got 22 degrees range of motion that can be used by using the ski walk mechanism on the back. Now, Vibram sole, you'll notice here, it does not have the tech toe like the TX Pro. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. But other than that, it's a 4-buckle boot, 2 buckles on the top, a nice mid-strap buckle, and a bottom buckle as well. Now, where this differs from the TX Pro in terms of performance is the stiffness of the boot. So this is rated at 125, whereas the TX Pro is 110. So if you have watched that video and you're looking for a comparison, this is probably the biggest difference, is the stiffness of the boot. So what does that mean? Well, it can mean a couple things. A stiffer boot, we need to kind of identify what type of telemark skier you are and why a stiffer boot might be necessary for you, either by preference or other factors. So I wanted to kind of break down a couple examples of why you may want a stiffer telemark boot for yourself. So the first thing is are you an aggressive skier in terms of your style? And I know this can kind of be very subjective in terms of what type of skier you may be, but when I'm thinking aggressive and I'm thinking a stiff boot, I'm thinking about how aggressively am I going into the turn, and also what type of terrain am I skiing. So let's use a couple examples. Is if I'm skiing big mountain terrain, either inbounds or out of bounds, if I'm skiing aggressively, I'm probably initiating turns with a lot of force, and I'm skiing hard, as they would say, okay? So I'm really getting into it, I'm initiating the turns, and I'm putting a lot of energy into the boot. So that's kind of what I mean by an aggressive skier. So that would be one case for having a stiffer boot, is you like the feel of being aggressive in terms of initiating your turns, and you want a boot to match that as well. The second type of an aggressive skier maybe, and maybe that's not the exact right word, but let's say you are skiing on piste a lot, or on a groomer or hard pack, and maybe you're someone who really likes to carve, okay? So maybe you're not initiating as aggressively every single turn, but maybe you like to carve out longer turns and you want a boot that's gonna really feel firm to your foot, and maybe you're looking for a stiffer binding as well. So that's sort of example number 2 of someone who likes more of a carving type of setup for their telemark setup. You're skiing on groomers or on piste a lot of the time. So I mentioned off-piste skiing, or maybe you want to call it backcountry skiing or whatever else. But maybe you're inbounds at a ski area, but you're skiing maybe some more aggressive terrain, chop conditions, pack powder conditions. There's all sorts of different conditions we could go over. Or maybe you're skiing in the backcountry, some very aggressive terrain, steeper couloirs, that type of thing. So this could be a good boot for you, assuming that you also like and understand what a stiffer boot is gonna do in terms of performance. Now, not everybody wants that stiffer boot, obviously, and I think there's a lot of personal preference. So if you have the opportunity to try a TX Pro side by side with a TX Comp, I think that's a really good option prior to getting into it. So the other person that might want this boot is someone who's not interested in having tech toe in the boot itself. So there's various tech toe NTN bindings, and if you're someone who is more interested in a cage toe binding, and you don't need the ability to have tech toe in this particular boot, this is also a good boot for you. A couple other things that I do like about this boot is it's got Scarpa's Intuition liner. It's a heat moldable liner, very, very comfortable. And also the last of this boot, which is the width in the toe box, is 102 millimeters. And I've found that this is a really good boot and feels very good on most people's feet and fits really well. So those are two aspects that I really like about the TX Comp specifically. And I personally also like this boot in certain situations, most of which I mentioned before. Maybe I'm looking for a groomer setup, more of a carving style setup, somewhere where maybe I'm gonna ski more aggressive. This has been the boot that I really like. Now, if you're coming from 75 millimeter in the Scarpa family, the T Race or the T1 is probably the most similar. In the TX Pro video, I did talk about T1 being the closest in the family when that boot existed that probably fit the TX Pro. Now, the one thing I mentioned in that particular video is that the bellow on the TX Pro, the other boot, is a little bit softer than T1. I would say this 125 Flex is closer to the T-Race boot, which also is not in existence anymore, but was a fantastic boot. And if you're looking for something like that in terms of stiffness, this is probably gonna be a better fit for you in terms of coming to the NTN platform. So are you curious about how the TX Pro and the TX Comp really stack up with one another? This is a very common question because they're the two NTN boots that exist in the Scarpa lineup. So if you're interested in a super deep dive, I'm gonna be doing a special video that you can link to here in this video or in the video notes. That's gonna be a deep dive for our channel members to get a deep understanding of the TX Pro versus the TX Comp. Now, obviously, I'm gonna take all of the basics that I've talked about in the various videos, the techs and the specs, but I'm gonna go even deeper and explain more about how they compare and maybe how you can find out if this is the right boot for you, whether you're supposed to choose TX Comp or the TX Pro. Now, channel memberships are something really important to us that we started recently, and it lets you support these videos that we're creating. And it allows us to do things like this, to go deeper into a topic about equipment, about history and whatnot, and you're the ones that are supporting it. So if this video is of interest to you, hopefully you can check out this video at the blue level or above, and that'll give you access to check it out. So as always, regardless of whether you're a member of the channel or not, I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. I love sharing all of our knowledge about telemark skiing, equipment, and the things that we sell here at the Freeheel Life shop and our products as well. And I'm looking forward to another great season of telemark skiing and sharing what we know here at Freeheel Life with you. So until next time, spread telemark always.